Welcome back to CodingCat.dev, where we give you cats the freshest dose of dev snacks. Brought to you by Cloudinary, build faster with AI-powered image and video APIs. I have this really fun thing, John, because we're recording this right after Supabase. Do I just call it X launch?
Launch week X
Launch
is
week
what we're going
X.
with.
There wasn't a 9, but we'll get into that. But the reason I bring that up is because I stole a little clip of some music that was released. And I'm going to play it right now so everybody can enjoy. Okay, so that was just a small clip. I gotta know, who made that? How do you do the video? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I mean, this could be a whole podcast on its own. In fact, scrap Launch Week X. Let's just talk about the album.
Maybe I should pause for 2 seconds. I'm making a huge assumption here. So, John, can you introduce yourself first of all before we get into all that?
Absolutely. Hello, my name is John Myers. I'm a developer advocate at Supabase, which means I get to shout about all of these fun features that we launch and get to do a whole bunch of, very, very fun videos around launch week time, which is where we release a feature every day for a week or launch many, many, many more than one features per day for a week. And sometimes I get to do extra special things like this launch week where I got to launch an album.
That's wild. That blows my mind. How long did it take you to make this album?
This album has been in the works for basically since I started. So the way that it all kind of happened was when I started at Supabase, there was kind of like we had a YouTube channel that we just used to put up videos that we wanted to embed in the docs, basically. Like there was no kind of brand or consistency on the YouTube channel. And so when I came in, that was something that I really wanted to improve. And so along with the visual brand, I also wanted this kind of audio brand where we had a consistent song that we could use for every intro and outro for our YouTube videos.
Yep.
And then we started doing live streams, and so I was like, well, we need a different one, obviously. And so I produced a track for our live streams, and then we do these launch weeks every 4 months or so. And so I was like, well, we need a new one for every launch week. And then we just kind of built up this bank of music that's all kind of this cool synth wavy, 80s inspired synth music. And so, yeah, I decided that we should put it together as an album. And then it just took me 2 years to actually get the time to finally put it together.
So it just took 2 years. Okay. Well,
yeah,
that
only 2
seems
years.
pretty quick, I would say.
The thing that really lit the fire under it actually getting finished was Paul Copplestone, or Copple, the CEO of Supabase, publicly bet the CEO of PlanetScale, Sam Lambert, that we would get this album out before the end of the year, or else he would give Sam 1% of his equity in Supabase. And so once there was, a financial commitment by the CEO of our company that I needed to get this finished, that's why we have an album now.
I was just gonna say, was there no financial gain here for you, John? This is just part of your daily job, and people are betting percentages of companies. That's not fair.
Yeah, pretty much.
So this thing has 15 tracks. Each one are named. Where did you come up with the names, first of all?
This is actually just going to be a whole podcast about the album. This is great.
I mean, it's going to start out that way for sure.
So this is 15 tracks. There are actually maybe I shouldn't let Paul know this, But there's probably another like 15 tracks that were B-sides that haven't been finished, haven't been polished, that maybe I shouldn't let him bet more of the company away to ensure that I finish it next year. But yeah, there's basically a whole sequel to this that hasn't even, we haven't even started putting together. But what was the question?
The names. So there's 15,
names, yes,
15 tracks. How'd you come up with these?
Yes, these 15 tracks. It's a little bit fun if you want to pause the podcast and go and look at the tracks and see if you can work it out for yourself, because it is there is a consistent theme with them. But
I feel like, so Hal, like I remember the movie, and there's like a Hal robot, right?
Yeah, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Trinity, yeah, it's exact. So, and Trinity is from the Matrix, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
And I'm like, I don't know. There's Logan was X-Men, Starbucks.
No, not X-Men. This is, see, a lot of people got this one wrong. It would make sense that it was X-Men, but that one's actually Logan's Run, which is another 80s sci-fi movie. So all of these, I guess they're not all technically 80s sci-fi movies. Trinity is from The Matrix, which was obviously much later. But these are just, awesome sci-fi movies, or some kind of like futuristic dystopian society, either novels or movies. I think all of them have at least been turned into movies. But yeah, a lot of inspiration from like George Orwell style sci-fi novels, or like Philip K. Dick and those sort of authors.
Wow, that's incredible.
But they're all main characters from those movies. And so I'm tossing around for the sequel ideas. If it is 15 tracks again, then maybe I could just like make it all the secondary characters from those same movies and see if people put it together. So
yeah, that would be really cool. So I just want to play it one more time because I have another question. Not the whole thing, just a little snippet here. Okay, so you kind of saw like the woman, she's kind of like changing. How the heck did you make that video?
Yeah, so this is another fun thing about all of the visual aspects. So
I feel like there's some Gen AI happening or something.
Yeah. So it's basically everything visual is AI. Everything audio has nothing to do with AI. I tried to actually use AI to write some of the like melodies and stuff, and it just everything it spat out was just like doesn't quite sound right. But yeah, with the visual aspect, it started off as ChatGPT prompts. So I got it to write like a 15, like basically a summary for each chapter of which is each song. So there's 15 chapters, and then I used those the prompts, the response that came out of that, the summaries for each of the chapters, to feed into Midjourney, which is a image generation AI thingo. And so you can tell it, like give it a text prompt, and it will spit out a still image. And so all of those text prompts were like the chapter, and then like in the style of cyberpunk, futuristic, dystopian society, future from the perspective of the 80s, with neon lights bleeding green and purple, was basically like the
nice. So Midjourney does like photos. How the heck did you turn those photos into a video?
Yeah, so then taking those Midjourney images, I then fed them into something called Kaiber, Kaiber, I think, which is a video generation platform. So that can take an image. So I took the image from Midjourney. It can take a text prompt. So I combined that with the text prompt from ChatGPT, and then and then it spits out. Oh yeah, and then the song obviously is the third part. And so some of the if you watch through all of the videos, it's very long. It's like an hour of music, but if you watch through all the videos, they're all slightly different in like the theme that they use. And some of them, like the camera's moving, and some of them it's like rotating, and there's like these different settings that you can set. And one of those is like how much you want it to react to the music. So some of them are really reactive to the music that's happening, and some of them are just kind of like this flipbook animation of different frames.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
There's I watched a couple of them, not like hour of them.
That's fine. That's fine.
And like,
I think I'm the only one that's actually seen every frame.
It is really great for like coding background music. So it's kind of lo-fi music to code to. But
that was the intention, was to make the perfect album for you to have on in the background while you're working on a Supabase hackathon project. So we also run a hackathon alongside the launch weeks. And so this is the perfect soundtrack to write your hackathon project.
I mean, once you have that B-side and like 8 albums later, you'll have a full day of coding music. It's great. So the Kyber thing, that's pretty cool that it can pick up like the music, because I saw in some of those images like it would change on the beat, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, like this isn't just kind of automating some things, it's listening and everything else. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's very cool. So much cool stuff going on in the
I think I'm gonna
AI
have to like pay you to do our intro. That's what I've been working on. So I don't know, John. We might have to talk after.
I'm available to produce music for any company. This is my new role. Instead of developer advocate at Supabase, I am now the musical director at Supabase, self-appointed musical director.
Yeah, at least director, probably VP, maybe. Like really put a good title around it.
And then like, you know, as a side thing at Supabase, I'll do some developer advocacy stuff, but mainly musical director now.
That's incredible. So last time we talked, I feel like were you just getting started? Let me go look it up really quick. I gotta go CodingCat Command K and then type in John Myers. It's so simple. I'm trying to remember when our episode came out.
I think we do two? Did we do one on
January 18th of 22 was our Supabase open source alternative to Firebase. So how long were you at Supabase at that point? Do you recall?
Sorry, what was the date?
January 18 of 22. So
22. So I think I had only been there for about 3 or 4 months at that point.
I was gonna say, like, so how has it been? Tell me about like working at Supabase as a DevRel.
Yeah, it's been an awesome place to be as a DevRel. I feel like I probably said this right back in that episode, but I think because the surface area of Supabase is so wide, like it's not just like a single ORM, or it's not just an OR solution, it's not just database hosting, because it covers all of this surface area. It means as a DevRel, like, you know, the main thing that I do is create example applications, help build out some tooling to make integrations tighter, and then create a bunch of YouTube tutorials to show how to do those things. And I think I would have said, you know, like almost 2 years ago when we caught up, that would make it a really interesting place to work long term. And I feel like that is still the case. Like I'm still finding cool stuff about Supabase, not even like the new stuff that we're launching every couple of months, but even stuff that's always been there that I just didn't know. And I'm like, that is so cool. I definitely need to highlight that. It's just very interesting having so many things that I can build with under the umbrella of Supabase.
Totally. Cool. So I'm gonna put us on a little ad break, and then when we come back, we're gonna dive into launch week X.
Cloudinary allows you to remove any unwanted backgrounds, so you can reuse assets efficiently. You can also erase objects and people from images for placement in new experiences. For more engaging content, easily turn static images into dynamic animations, and rely on smart cropping to always deliver assets with a focus on the most relevant objects to your brand. Cloudinary Programmable Media. Build faster with AI-powered image and video APIs.
You have like a whole production, everything going. This is amazing.
I keep trying to get people to like actually sponsor CodingCat. So like if Supabase is looking for an awesome podcast like this to sponsor, we're all about web development, so it should fit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty well done, isn't it?
It is. It's very cool.
I mean, it goes out in like YouTube Shorts afterwards, TikTok, it's everywhere. You'll see it.
Are you doing this as part of your role at the new place, or is this all in? Sorry, are we not recording right now? Is this
We're totally recording? It's totally fine.
Is this going to be in the final version of the podcast?
If I say something terrible, I just make a mark and I say, "Hey, Ashley, our editor, please pull this out." So like this part, she might. I don't know.
Okay, Cool.
No, but yeah, this is all mostly done. You know, we kind of have an agreement that my lunches I do code with CodingCat, but as you can tell, I spotted in and we knock out these episodes. And it's a lot of fun. Like I love talking with people, and I don't sleep much, so having
Oh,
two
that's good.
jobs
That's a good
basically.
thing.
I did decide for the end, so recording this just at the end of 23, that I can't just sit in my room for like 20 hours a day anymore. So my wife is very proud of me. I've started CrossFit and my whole body hurts right now. So
Excellent.
it's great.
That is very good. Yeah, that will probably help with the sleep as well if you
I
run
can't
down
even
the
tell
body a
you.
little bit.
After the first one, I was like, like I never have slept that well in like years, probably. So yeah, definitely helps.
Very good.
Sorry. So back on to Supabase. So can you give me like the one liner just so people joining in at this point, or for our shorts, like what is Supabase in a nutshell, and kind of what is it used for typically?
Sure. So Supabase is an open source project that is basically a collection of tools that wrap around a Postgres database. And so you get things like database hosting, authentication, authorization, real time, edge functions, AI embedding stuff, all of that wrapped around a Postgres database. So you can take that Postgres database and move it anywhere you want. Either you can host it with our Supabase cloud, or you can go and host it yourself on your own Raspberry Pi running in your house if you would like.
Wow. Raspberry Pi 4 probably. I feel like a 3 might be rough, but
Nah, all the way back. Raspberry Pi 1.
oh my gosh, that would be impressive.
Supabase is that efficient.
That's really, really good, John. So actually one of those hosting things is on our list of top 10. So we're gonna kind of work through an outline of our list, and we'll go through these. So I'm debating whether or not to show this on screen or just talk about it, John. I think I might just talk about it and pop on a screen. So for
Sounds
those
good.
of you watching, here's kind of what we're going through. This is on the Supabase blog. It's Launch Week X best launches, and we're just gonna kind of cruise through the top 10 and pick up pieces and parts that we might need. But you're just talking about hosting, and one of those hosting options on here is fly.io, which I love. I just did a blog about this on Fusion Auth. So talk
Yeah.
to me about kind of what you guys are doing over there with the Postgres piece.
Yeah, so we've teamed up with Fly. If you don't know, Fly is a hosting service that has an edge network of a whole bunch of CDN servers all over the world where you can host your application or run a Docker image or whatever. And so we are now launching or taking over launching the Fly Postgres package, which will allow you to deploy a Postgres instance. Only now, instead of being an unmanaged just Postgres like server running somewhere for Fly, it's now going to be an entirely managed Supabase instance. So
Oh, wow.
it'll be a Supabase instance deployed within the Fly network. So you get all of that greatness of edge deployment everywhere. You can also have, you can either have your Postgres instance deployed in one place, or you can have it deployed globally across that edge, which we'll talk about a little bit more about what makes that possible in a future one. But yes, it going from unmanaged to managed means that you don't need to worry about all of those issues with scaling and backups and like version upgrades and things like that. That is all handled for you by Supabase, and you also get all of the other cool stuff. I'm not sure if it's kind of like a bit of a long process rolling this out, but eventually we will be getting to the point where you have everything like an entire Supabase instance. So again, you have that. Obviously, the Postgres instance is hosted, but then you have auth, edge functions, GraphQL, all of those things in that Docker image that's being deployed globally.
Nice. There's a call out in there, if I remember. It was a minute since I read it. That you avoided doing AWS for this, and that's because there's just challenges around that, or what does that like? Why?
Yeah, I think we've always kind of built things either on open source tools that already exist, or tried to
Sure.
keep them as platform agnostic as possible, so that we can take opportunities like this to move it around. And the underlying kind of Postgres engine, or the extension that powers this in Fly is called Firecracker, and that is just like a ridiculously fast way to spin up and spin down instances, like entire Postgres instances. And so that existing within that Fly ecosystem makes this just so much more possible in that kind of deployment environment over other ones.
Nice. I should read this card right here. So we just had Fly on, and Dov talked all about it, and also how the internet's run by duct tape and submarine cables. So that's been a fun YouTube short that's going around. So definitely check that episode out if you want to know more about Firecracker and how Fly.io works. All right, number 2, John, Supabase Grafana. Do I say that word right?
I think it's Grafana. Yeah.
Grafana.
Yeah, so Grafana is like an analytics platform that gives you these nice like dashboards that can tell you about the performance of your database, but also just the whole like the CPU and memory and everything that's running on that on the actual compute server. And so we've been using Grafana internally at Supabase for analytics and monitoring and things for all Supabase projects. And so now we've wrapped all of that up into a nice little open source package, which again is what we tend to do at Supabase, rather than building like something proprietary that you can only use as a Supabase user. We tend to build open source projects that can kind of be plugged into other things, or open source extensions for Postgres itself, rather than just being a feature that exists within Supabase. So this one is kind of tied to Supabase because it's a Supabase specific Grafana instance.
Okay.
But you can now connect it to your own Supabase instance that you're running wherever you would like to run it, rather than just within the hosted platform of Supabase Cloud.
Nice. Let me pop up just a quick. Here's what Grafana looks like. I think a lot of people are starting to use this in some open source, like Kenzie Dodds, I think, has it in his Epic Stack now as well.
Right.
This is a piece of that. So
yeah, it's super handy to kind of track down those performance issues, or even understand that there is a performance issue, and that things aren't just slow because they're traveling across the world. There might actually be something going on with the amount of CPU that particular instance has access to. It might need to be scaled up, all of those things.
Nice. Cool. The third thing that we have, PG GraphQL now supports Postgres Functions. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so this is another example of one of those things where we wanted there to be a Postgres server running alongside your Supabase instance. And so rather than just building that into Supabase, we built an extension for Postgres, so you can run this on any Postgres instance. So it's called PG GraphQL, or PG_GraphQL. And we use that in your Supabase instance to automatically generate a GraphQL server that stays perfectly in sync with your Supabase instance. So when you create a new table, or you change one of your columns or something like that, you don't need to change anything in your GraphQL schema or your what are the other things called? Queries and mutations and all those things. No, you don't need to resolvers. That's what I was thinking. You don't need to write your own custom resolvers or types or anything like that. All of that is generated and maintained for you by this GraphQL server and PG GraphQL under the hood. But the cool thing that we've launched with this, that's been available for a while, but now Postgres functions are also included in your GraphQL schema. So Postgres functions are a way that you can like group together a collection of SQL statements, or just kind of like encapsulate some functionality into a Postgres function. And you've always been able to call those with something called RPC, or remote procedure call, which is something in Supabase JS. And so you've always been able to call these from your application, but you kind of had to step outside of that GraphQL world to do that. Whereas now that is included within your GraphQL schema. So if you want to play with it, check out the automatically generated docs in your Supabase Studio, where there is an entire GraphQL playground where you can see, you can interact with your GraphQL server and use IntelliSense to build out your queries.
Nice. So do people still use like Prisma on top of that typically, or that's kind of like they're either Prisma or they're like GraphQL, and those are two different things?
Do you mean the Prisma package itself, like the Prisma ORM?
Yes, the Prisma ORM piece.
Yeah. So I believe that's completely like decoupled from
Okay.
GraphQL now. I think you can run GraphQL. I think they created GraphCool. I think that was like the original Prisma thing. But yeah, as the package has kind of grown, it's tried to decouple all of the GraphQL stuff from the regular ORM stuff. So you can use
Gotcha.
Prisma as its own separate ORM. It might actually maybe turn that. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to.
I know last time, like I checked out Supabase. It's been a minute. We did kind of like some Prisma ORM stuff, and we were able to like create all the schemas and like things like that, and then just run migrate, and it was up and running in Supabase. So I didn't know if like that piece would be part of it or not. So that's probably on me because I just don't remember doing much of it.
So yeah, not on the GraphQL specific side, but yeah, you can connect Postgres to. You can connect Prisma to any database instance,
Yep.
MySQL or Postgres or Mongo. I think they also support. There's a little bit of like you lose a little bit of the Supabase stack when you use Prisma as the ORM bit because it doesn't automatically pipe through your auth information. And so, you don't kind of get that end-to-end experience of everything being really tightly integrated that you do when you use Supabase JS or the GraphQL instance. But yeah, because it's all just a collection of tools wrapped around a Postgres database, you can connect to that any way you'd like.
Totally makes sense. Cool. The next one up, I'll pop on the screen because I think this is the correct one. So this is the Python one. Python libs are now stable. And you guys have quite a few here. Swift, Kotlin, TypeScript, Flutter, and Python are out here.
Yeah. So all of the client libraries have been a really big focus over the last couple of months, trying to bring them all up in line with Supabase JS. Some of them were like, partially implemented. Some of them were like kind of abandoned, and some of them we've just started building from scratch. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of new ways that you can use Supabase. The Python one is particularly important at the moment, I think, because of this huge shift in the AI world. And so with this new Python library being stable, it means that you can use all of the cool AI embeddings stuff that you get with a Supabase instance, but now you can also use that Supabase client directly within Python. And so rather than needing to build part of it over here and then use something different in Python, or just use the HTTP service of Supabase in Python world, we now have a stable library that can do all of the things.
Wow, that's really cool. I know those things, like putting those wrappers or SDKs around that stuff can be really challenging. It takes forever at work too, so we're constantly updating and babying those things. I noticed,
and then when you roll something out to one client library, it's like, do you roll it out to all of them? Is it exclusive to one? And then you don't want them to drift apart, but it's So there's been a big effort to kind of bring all of those back in line to
really cool.
support all of the same kind of core set of features.
I know when I was at Builder.io, they had this tool called Mitosis. It's an open source tool that takes I think it's JSX in, it's been a minute, and then it produces all of these different libraries out from it. And it's like, man, if everything worked that well that way, it would be amazing. We've been talking about doing Open API and just using that as kind of a spec and then automating the production of these SDKs and stuff. But it's got its own kind of limits and quirks, but it's always challenging. It's a lot of fun.
So we PostgREST. Actually, we're about to talk about it. you go.
Yeah, so I'll finish up on the Python thing. We just did live coding with Simon Grimm on Expo and React Native, and I see directly in here Cedric, I think is the one of the core maintainers of Expo. So it was cool to just have him on, and I see him on here too. So it's really exciting. My worlds are colliding as usual.
They've both been huge in the client development side of things, and we've been doing a lot of work with React Native recently. Thor has been working closely with all the people in the React Native team to again try and like bring up the level of support from it kind of works up to the level of like our Flutter library, which has always been very tightly integrated with Supabase.
I have to tell you, as a web developer, checking out React Native basically for the first time in Expo was like, whoa, this actually works. Every other time I've touched native, I don't know if you call it native at that point, but that side of development, I'm like, please don't show me this ever again. Like, I'll just stick with web development. So, but it was amazing. It was like, I felt like I was just writing React. It was cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazingly well integrated or well implemented.
Another one that I can never pronounce, PostgREST 12. What is that providing for you guys?
Yeah, so PostgREST. So this is like Postgres, but with a T on the end. And so this is the REST service that sits on top of your Postgres database with a Supabase instance. So again, it's its own open source project, but it allows you to make requests for data directly from your front end or from your server, wherever you're requesting data. It goes to PostgREST, which pipes through all of your like JWT and auth information that we were talking about before, pipes that through to your database call. So then in Postgres, you can, when someone's trying to like select data from the database or access particular rows, you can actually detect who that user is, nice. Who that signed in user is, and whether they should have access to it. So PostgREST allows like all of the auth stuff, all of the other bits of the ecosystem to kind of like flow through to your database, and makes it much easier to write like authorization policies, like RLS policies, row level security. If you're not familiar with database world and that style of authorization, you can use row level security policies to write like access policies within your database, and that's all kind of enabled by PostgREST. So this new version just adds a whole bunch of awesome new conveniences, and a big one for this version in particular is aggregate functions. And so they're supporting all of the like sum and average. You've always been able to do some aggregate functions like count and a couple of others, but if you want to do anything more complex than that, anything that's not supported by that sort of PostgREST layer, then you need to step out into using a Postgres function or using a Postgres view or something like that. Whereas now you can do it directly in your Supabase JS queries because they're the things that go through to Postgres land.
That's really neat. It's awesome to have all of those kind of aggregate functions just right at your fingertips. I know that's still a struggle for me every time. So I'm the Firebase GD and Firestore, like it introduces some of these things, but man, is it painful still. So
yeah,
it's a little frustrating. When we kind of look at you talked about row level, and we don't have to dive into this too deep, but are you able to kind of hackily do field level as well? Like if you store social security numbers and like your manager can view it, but no one else, like that side of things, is that capable?
One thing you can do is we have a package that we published called PG Sodium, which is the coolest name for something that does salting and hashing of particular columns. So you can set a column to be like a obfuscated like secret value or whatever.
Wow, that's cool.
And then only be able to access, like you can write an RLS policy that says that only certain people are allowed to access that
that's really
encrypted
neat.
column or the value for that encrypted column. Column level security itself is something that everyone's been trying to solve in that space for a long time.
Yeah.
This doesn't allow you to dig down to the column level. And so, yeah, if you want to protect a particular column rather than the entire row, we usually recommend you break out any protected stuff you want into a separate table and then have a one-to-one relationship. So you've got like your private table that only privileged people have access to, and then your kind of common public data in a separate table.
Cool.
So that's
I know GDPR and all that stuff is really fun to like try to clean up tables and then get that stuff out. So
yeah, but it is something that we're currently looking at different options in this space. But right now, that's the best option.
More power to you. That stuff's challenging. So
yeah.
Supa. I almost said it wrong. Supavisor 1.0. So tell me about this cloud native connection pooler.
Yes. So this is a connection pooler, which if you're not familiar, is a way that like when Postgres was created, the idea was that you had one server that was connected to one database and it had a solid connection, and it sent all of your queries down that one solid connection to the database that was persistent and stayed connected the entire time. Now with this like serverless world where you have a whole bunch of small functions, like serverless functions spinning up for like, sub 100 milliseconds or whatever, it's a lot of overhead to establish a connection to the database and then send your query down there and then disconnect it. That ends up slowing down your serverless functions quite a lot, and also overloading the database because it's just not designed to have so many concurrent connections or short-lived connections. And so a connection pooler is basically like a piece that sits in between, and it holds onto a collection of stable direct connections to the database, and then that's what a serverless function will connect to and then send a query. So it's a much faster way to share a collection of long-lived stable connections to the database across a whole bunch of queries coming from very short-lived functions. So Supavisor is our connection pooler, or a connection pooler, again, that we've built an open source connection pooler that you can use for any Postgres instance, but it's now what we use under the hood for every single Supabase project. So it's built on Elixir, which is really, really good at concurrent connections and sharing that kind of load across a whole bunch of concurrent users or concurrent requests. And so, a big part of this going 1.0 and being like us saying that it's stable, it was us migrating all Supabase projects from PG Bouncer, which was the connection pooler that we used to use, across to Supavisor. And so, if it's able to handle the workload of the entirety of every Supabase instance, I think it's ready for production.
Probably, yeah. And Jose Valem from Elixir, I think he's the creator of Elixir. He has kind of a video out about how that works and the connection pooler and stuff. So check that out. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I had another question in my mind and I just lost it. So upgrade paths. So if someone's on an older version, and since this is like all new, is it straightforward to do that upgrade if they're hosting themselves?
As in from PG Bouncer to Supavisor?
Yes.
I'm just gonna say yes. I haven't actually experienced it beyond Supabase's like
their big migration.
Supabase, you for a while you could choose whether you wanted to connect to PG Bouncer or you wanted to connect to Supavisor. And so that part was really easy in terms of migrating for me because it was changing the connection string from this connection string to a different connection string. But yes, check out the blog and check out the package to if you want to migrate over from PG Bouncer to Supavisor yourself.
Nice, very cool. The next one up is Edge functions now support Node and NPM. Somebody has a pretty funny video cover on this one. Let me find it. There we go. Node.js or Deno? Why not both? That's what John says.
I've been getting so much flack for this, for like not having a clear enough title that communicates my understanding that Deno is a runtime and Node is a runtime, and neither of them are a language. They are a place that you're running code, and they have particular APIs that are supported. I understand this. I know this. It was all part of like, it was kind of tongue in cheek, the whole thumbnail and everything for it. But the thumbnail is me saying, why not both? And it's attempting to, there's that meme, which is based on, I think, an El Paso ad, about like tacos versus burritos.
Yes.
Why not both? And then everyone celebrates. Yeah, that was my best attempt at that meme. But
I love it. What a reference too.
Yeah. But the thing that we're actually launching beyond all of that is that edge functions, which are the kind of underlying runtime is Deno for all of the Supabase edge functions. That has like drastically improved Node support or NPM support and Node compatibility. And so I put together a video which is in that blog, which you should definitely check out, that shows how easy it is to migrate an existing Node application across to a Supabase edge function or a Deno deploy function. Because the NPM packages can now be imported directly in your import statement. You just specify that it's coming from NPM, and then even Node APIs like process, so where you usually get your environment variables from process.env.something, process itself, which is a Node API, is now importable within Deno. So huge wins for compatibility. And in that video, I show how you basically don't need to touch the entire application. You can write one file that's like a little bit of glue between your import statements and the path that you want to import them from. And then basically the rest of the application is untouched, which is using Drizzle, Express, and the PG package, all three of which, up until this new Node and NPM support, was not possible to use within a Deno edge function. So there you go. Magic. It all just works.
And a lot of this is because Deno like started supporting like all of the NPM packages, right? That was a big push forward.
Yeah.
I think they started out with high hopes and didn't realize how big the NPM ecosystem really was.
Yeah, it's such a funny story that like Ryan Dahl going from like building Node, not happy with Node, leaves Node. What am I going to build? I know, I'll build a better Node and I'll build it differently. And then like this third phase that we're in where it's like, okay, we're just going to support all of Node within the new thing.
Turns out we built something pretty incredible. Maybe if we start building this dinosaur thing, the Node people will actually start to push a little harder. And I think that's what we've seen when like we talk about Bun being out there and everyone believes that the Bun creator spends too many hours in a chair. So it's kind of going to be hard to continue support. Deno with the like TypeScript side of things, amazing. Like, let's keep that rocking. And then like the Node.js was like, no, we'll just start really merging, and like they've really upped their game. So I think it was good to get Node to kind of continue along, and the Deno side's doing some great stuff. So
I think competitors to like Node and NPM have always driven things forward so much. Like Yarn just like massively improved NPM and like introduced like, the Yarn lock file to make sure that versions were like locked into particular versions. And then NPM started doing that. And then you could run like things directly with Yarn. And so then NPM was like, well, we'll do NPX so you can run that directly without installing it. I feel like, there's people popping up with these amazing ideas.
I will say they need to do something around like the PNPM story, because I can't use NPM anymore. PNPM is so much faster. It's unbelievable. But that's for another day. Then the next, you know what? No, I need to pause still here because I forgot. When we call these edge functions, are they truly on the edge? Like, what does that mean? Like at App right there, calling them like that as well. And I'm like, that's not an edge function. Like they're not running on like a microserver as close as possible to you. It's just another cloud function. What does edge function in Supabase's world mean?
So in Supabase's world, they are globally distributed functions. So they use Deno deploy, or maybe you. Hang on, let's edit this part.
Sure.
Let me quickly.
Ashley, how's it going?
Hi, Ashley. Sorry, I messed up. What are we talking about? We're talking about
this is always
edge.
challenging for me because typical edge functions have such a small JavaScript runtime involved with them that I'm like, this isn't an edge function.
Well, they're all Deno functions. The bit that I'm not sure is I just stated that they're hosted on Deno deploy. I don't think they are anymore. I think we're hosting them within the Supabase stack.
Yeah, these are hard to find. Let's see. Do you guys have like a map of this?
No. The last one I can find is about the when we made it like you could host your own self-hosted stuff. Good question.
Might have to pull that part out. If you do stumble upon it, we can add it to the description of just
sure.
Here you go.
Sounds good.
That sort of thing.
We just jump to the next section where you were already jumping to. It's a very clean bit to cut out, and I'll find out where we're actually
part out.
Because I think they will be being hosted on Fly with Fly's Edge network.
Wow.
But I'm not sure if they're
doing a lot of work for Fly. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's been a lot of work in this integration with them. So don't want to state that it's definitely the case yet. So actually cut all that out, please. And let's just move on to the next.
Make sure to put notes in our GitHub issue. So that was really cool by Edge function. Anyways, number 8, leaked password protection with "Have I Been Pawned?" That's quite a title, by the way.
Yeah. So Have I Been Pwned is a site where you can go and check your whether your email address has been leaked, whether your credentials have been leaked, and you can actually check the strength of a password and see if a particular password has been so Alex has distracted me by imitating my my thumbnails on the blog.
Just kicking butt, man. They're crushing it.
But yes, Have I Been Pwned allows you to check what is how secure is this password? Has this specific password been leaked in any what are they called, data breaches or paste bins or anything like that? And so you can now we have integrated that functionality into Supabase itself. So when a user, this is something you can toggle on in your Supabase instance, but if you want your users to only have super strong passwords, you can now turn on a setting that means that it will fail to create a user's account if they try to sign up with a particular password that has been leaked or is not a secure enough password. So this means that you can kind of feed that information back to your users and kind of explain to them, hey, that password is probably not something you want to keep using over and over and over again for all of these services. It has shown up on this site. You should probably go and protect yourself. And also, this is what a password manager is. And here's a discount code to 1Password if you use my affiliate link. And
Let's put all of that in there because I weekly now tell my wife, you need to use our 1Password account, please. And because every password is the same. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, I have this conversation probably monthly with my parents who are pretty password aware, but just getting over the hump of they still think that a password with 4 characters modified on the end, but having the same main part of the password is secure. And I just have to keep having the same argument with them. So now I'm just going to ask them to sign up for my app. and I'm going to toggle this on in the background, and then
Oh.
Supabase can tell them, or my app can tell them, that their passwords are not secure enough, and
Nope.
hopefully that'll be enough of a motivator.
John's app said no. That's awesome. I just mentally I gotta ask you this because you're in auth world often. So on 1Password, I'm fed up with Google Authenticator because basically I can't sort by name and I have to like manually shuffle. I'm just done. So I put everything into 1Password. Do you think it's okay to have your MFA and like your actual password all be in one system like that? So I can now click on a website. It says, "Do you want to use your passkey?" And I'm like, "Yes," and it auto fills it for me. I'm like, "What's the point of this passkey?"
Are you asking me whether I think it's a good idea or whether I do it? They're two different things.
Can I say both?
I'm going to say no, it's not a good idea. Do I do it for convenience sake? Absolutely. The password manager is enough.
Oh god.
For all my Supabase stuff.
I'm glad I'm with a person just like myself. This is great. After preaching
all my work stuff, we have like enforced 2FA that's much more secure than that. But for any of my personal stuff, 2FA and a password manager, I think is enough.
Perfect. Good. Great answer because it's Alex approved. Oh, number 9, Supabase branching.
Yeah. So this is a huge one. This is like not only the feature itself, but also what it unlocks. This is kind of like has been a bottleneck for a lot of cool new stuff that we want to do. One of which we'll talk about right after this. But Supabase branching is a way to create a branch for your database. So you can think of it as like Git or GitHub. Well, Git is more correct, but it's like a Git for a Postgres database. And so with Git, you can have many branches, and they all kind of can go off in different directions. They can have a base branch that they all share, and then they can have a whole bunch of different changes. And so this is usually how teams do feature development at larger companies. You have a GitHub project or GitLab or something like that. And then everyone is creating like feature branches to work on individual features. And then the idea being that someone can pull down that branch and test it out locally, and have the version of the application be in exactly the same state as the version of someone else's application who's building this feature. And so now that same concept can be applied to Postgres. And so rather than just having a production version of your database, and then maybe you've got like a staging version that everyone shares, you can now have a separate branch of your entire, not just your entire Postgres instance, but your entire Supabase stack.
Wow.
You can have a separate branch for every single feature branch that you're working on in GitHub. And we've, if you watch the video for this one, you'll see that we've done a lot of work with a really tight integration with GitHub and a really tight integration with Vercel. And so there's like a whole CI pipeline that can automatically detect that there have been changes made to not just to your application to deploy a new version of your application, but also changes to your Postgres instance or your Supabase stack. So a migration needs to be created and then run against the production database when you launch your feature. So it's a way that you can apply a similar workflow, a similar like collaborative workflow to your Postgres instance rather than managing that separately to your application development.
That's really cool. I think the only thing the only database company I've seen is Zeta doing something similar to this.
I think PlanetScale is another big one that does branching.
Yeah. One question I always have when you like split out that feature, if you want data from like a data set of production data or staging data, do you just run like some sort of seed to do that?
Yeah. So we recommend not pulling in production data.
Remember all those passwords I was talking about?
Yeah. Just pull in my 1Password credentials. We'll just dump that out in plain text. Yeah. So did I just pause?
You've been pausing. I'm hoping that we can fix it in post.
Okay. Let me just quickly plug this in again and see.
Oh, you really paused.
So Ashley might need you to whoop, there we go. All right. Hopefully nothing else paused. Hopefully the audio was all good.
John's making an expensive episode, folks.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
so, yeah, don't seed your production data, but outside of that, you typically run a script?
Yeah, that's right. So you can keep a seed script alongside your, like you can have a seed script, again, a separate seed script for every branch if you want. But yes, you can automatically seed that data. And so that's usually what we would recommend, is that locally you have a seed file that seeds your local development database as you're building that feature. And then when you create a branch, like a branch in your GitHub project that's connected to your feature and deployed, that has a separate seed file that is, contains seed data for the feature that you're working on, as well as everything else.
Nice. That's awesome. One last one that we have is Postgres read replicas.
Yes, so this is enabled by branching. So read replicas are a way for you to globally distribute your entire Postgres database, or again, your entire Supabase stack. And so this is only a read version of your database, so it's a read replica. So you have one primary database, which is in one like physical locations. That might be US West, for example. You can then replicate that database globally, so you can have it in 70 different locations across the whole world. And anytime a user needs to read data from the database, ideally your entire application is also globally distributed. So I'm over here in Australia, which is pretty far away from the rest of the cloud world in US West or US East. And so it takes a while for data to travel all the way over to my location. So me being able to connect to a database, or being able to connect to a CDN node that's closest to my physical location, which is probably Sydney, and then to be able to have a read replica of my entire database in Sydney as well, means my entire round trip for reading data is just going from Melbourne to Sydney to another server in Sydney and then back to Melbourne. And so that's much shorter distance traveled, which is where the biggest latency bottleneck usually is in applications. So any writes to the database, obviously it would be a nightmare to maintain, all these different edge nodes that are all know slightly different things and are trying to tell the other one what the single source of truth is. So any writes still go back to the origin database, or that primary database, which is probably in US West or US East. But then Supabase also automatically handles rolling out those changes or propagating those changes out to all of those different read replicas. So if you change a row or you add a row to the primary database, that will automatically be rolled out to all of those different read replicas across the world.
Nice. Do you guys have a Australian location for Supabase that you can deploy to?
Sydney, yeah. So Sydney is our.
So you can actually that could be your read write, and then we could host your reads.
Yeah, that's the way we should do it. Yeah, bring that computer.
East or West, I'm like, is that the only spots? What's going on?
It's just where probably the majority of most of the traffic of the internet is going. So it's probably...
we hope US East 1, or that's the one in Virginia, never goes down. It does occasionally. It's not good. Geez.
But yeah, with those changes, it's rolled out very efficiently because it's just sending those changes. So it's sending what's called the write ahead log, which is just like a log of any changes to the database. So it doesn't need to destroy the entire database and scale up a new one. It can just apply those changes from the write ahead log. So there will be some amount of time of data being stale because you've created these read replicas across the world, and they don't know that something's changed. But within I don't want to say exact metrics, but let's say within a couple of seconds, all of the databases globally distributed should have that up-to-date data.
Nice. That's awesome. Any other launch items that I'm not thinking of? I mean, we already covered the album, so
one more. Yeah, the album was a huge one. Yeah, let's just keep talking about the album.
Yeah.
No, my favorite, I reckon, other than the album, which is not on this list. This is Coppel's top 10 or top 10 plus a whole bunch of other ones. My favorite is actually something that launched on, I think, day one, which is a combination of our AI assistant being embedded into the RLS policy view. So you're able to have like this chat GPT style text conversation or chat conversation with the AI assistant to create your access policies for your database. So create RLS policies. The combination of that, so not being able to, not having to write your own access policies, just saying, I want to enable read access, but only for people who have a domain that ends in supabase.com. So only people who work at Supabase. Being able to ask the AI robots to generate that for you, and then combining that with user impersonation, which is another feature that we rolled out, where from the Supabase Studio, you can like use the table editor and interact with the data on behalf of a particular user. So you can impersonate a user of your application, and you can test those RLS policies to say, well, this user does work for Supabase, so they should be able to insert a new row. And so you can insert a new row and see that you are able to do that, and you're able to read it back. But then you can change it to impersonate someone from another company and then try and perform the same action and see that that is denied. So a really great way to test RLS policies, but selfishly on my side, an excellent way for me to like educate people about what RLS policies are, and like it's a really visual, easy to understand way to kind of visually communicate that. So that's probably my favorite feature.
Nice. I think I saw somebody doing like AI generated, but then they would draw like 2 columns and be able to put the SQL. That was wild to me.
Yeah.
Did you see
Yeah,
that?
I saw the same thing. I saw the embedded tweet video of doing that. I was like, that is so cool. I haven't like dug into
Blew me
properly what's
away.
going on there, but yeah, amazing.
Yeah, AI is changing everything. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
I probably didn't prep you right, but we're gonna roll into our Purrfect Picks. So if you want to take a few minutes, I'll roll through mine.
Okay.
I don't do this very often, but for my picks this week, I'm actually picking some of our own stuff because I think it's gonna be really cool. So I actually don't have this recorded yet. We're doing this tomorrow. This is with Tim Bennix. We're gonna do a code with CodingCat all about Supabase, Algolia, and Nuxt, which I don't write much Nuxt, so we'll see how it goes. So we're gonna build kind of a SaaS application. We're calling it "Building My Own SaaS with Supabase, Algolia, and Nuxt." It's sponsored by Algolia, so it's a first fun sponsorship of the new year. And yeah, that's my full breakdown. That's my pick. I want to remind people because I've gotten feedback that they didn't realize this is a podcast still. So this does go out on Spotify as well as all of the podcatchers out there. Apple is still by far the biggest one for us. I just don't use it because I have an Android phone. So I always forget to prompt that. But those are all my picks. I do have to show John, since I'm out here, John's pick from last time. He may or may not remember this.
I do remember.
This was one of my favorite picks of all time. He picked a Dyson vacuum, which is just awesome. So just FYI, perfect picks can be anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you would let me, I would pick that vacuum cleaner again. Like,
Denied.
you know, years later, that is still a fantastic vacuum cleaner. Absolutely would recommend. But this time for my picks, with my very limited time to think of them, and I'm just looking at what's right in front of me. If you are creating content, I highly recommend getting a teleprompter, because it has saved me so much time being able to have a script in front of the camera. I do a lot of like my intros and outros, like talking to the camera.
Yeah.
And I used to just spend so long trying to get the right take based on memory. Like I would read it, I'd read it on the screen off to the side, and then I would like try and like deliver it in one take or like just a couple of takes, and it would just take so long. And buying a teleprompter has just massively reduced the amount of time that I need to spend like trying to get that right, because I can actually see the words in front of my face. So that would be my first pick.
That's
Do you
incredible.
use a teleprompter? Have you?
So I don't, and I've talked to people like a million times. What teleprompter are you using? Like how, like what do you use it with? And I'm always, often they'll tell me that they use like their phone and it does the whole mirror thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I have my setup. I have a DSLR that sits up here, and I want it to like just use that. And every time I go to do it, I'm just too lazy to commit to it, because I'm like, wait, now I need to write a script. And I'm really bad about like just kind of doing things kind of off the cuff, but I re-record just like you're talking about, like over and over and over, like an intro where I'm saying the same thing I would, and I've scripted it, and now I'm reading a Google Doc and I forgot, and I looked down, and it would save me so much time. You're absolutely right. Do you have a brand that you recommend?
This one was just like literally the cheapest one on Amazon, and
Okay.
it has been fantastic. Yeah.
Perfect. No, I love the pick, and there's a lot of great ones out there. Amy Dutton has suggested one to me over and over and over, so I'll have to kind of go out and take a look.
My
You're-
second one, my second pick is going to be I had it for a second. Oh yeah, on this, on a similar vein to last time, I picked a sampler, a kid's sampler, which was great for teaching about just like, you know, how sound can be manipulated. And so me and my daughter often like record a little sample on her Casio sampler keyboard and then like play it at different pitches. That was my pick last time. This time I'm going to pick this thing called Korg Little Bits, which is like basically a synthesizer. Obviously, you can see I like synthesizers. Okay, it is a synthesizer, but all broken up into little separate modules that can be clicked together as magnets. And so you have like similar to all of these synths around me. If you're watching the video version, or yeah, you've pulled it up there. So it's like you know, an oscillator, so something that creates a sound, and then a filter, so something that like filters down the sound, and different ways that you can modulate the sound, but you can click them together in different orders. And so it kind of is teaching her about, you know, like physics as well as like sound, like different things being responsible for like affecting the sound in different ways. I feel like it's very similar to coding, where it's kind of like logical steps that are going through like functions. So each of those little module pieces is like a function in Postgres, which are now exposed via the PostgREST version, whatever just came out. But yeah, it's kind of like teaching her about the each thing kind of affecting the sound in different ways. And so it's this interesting logic thing that also comes out with cool sound out the other end, because it's made by Korg, who are quite a prolific I've frozen again, but quite a prolific synth manufacturer.
If you ever kind of like want to take and jump a little past like just sound based stuff like that, microbits has been really cool to like show off coding to my son too. So check that out. Like they do, you can do gaming controllers, you can do little like bots to drive around. But for kids, it's really sweet. I think, I could be wrong, but I think they're somehow backed with Microsoft. But don't quote me on that. I'm being yelled at that it's dinner time, so I got to wrap it up. But thank you, John, once again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Supabase is killing it with all of their releases and everything that they're putting in. And I love seeing your album, like seeing DevRels do like that creative side. Just it blows my mind. So props to you for that.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
All right. See you next time.
See ya.